Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
Good evening. I am Sarah Johansson, and I will now call to order the Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, June 12th, 2023. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Milan Sahoni.
Present.
Linda Cohen.
Here.
Heidi Cater.
Here.
Bonita Lucky. Here. Cheryl Poseen.
Here.
Sheila Pryor.
Here.
Sarah Johansson.
Here.
Chase Anderson.
Here.
All right, we are all here and accounted for, and this is fantastic. It's a glorious summer evening and the first official day of summer, and look at everyone here to join us to celebrate our incredible staff and students and programs and community partners. So thank you all so very much for joining us this evening. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda items. The consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and addressed. The consent agenda items were listed in the packet, and the recommended action is to approve the agenda and the consent agenda items. Is there a motion to that effect?
I so move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote.
Linda Cohen.
Yes.
Heidi Cater.
Yes.
Bonita Lucky. Yes. Milan Sahoni.
Yes.
Cheryl Poseen.
Yes.
Sheila Pryor.
Yes.
Sarah Johansson.
Yes. Fantastic. We have an agenda and some items approved. So the first item on our agenda tonight are our reports from organizations. And as we are wrapping up a school year and transitioning to a new school year, we have two representatives from the Wayzata High School. So I will invite you up to the podium.
Hi guys, I hope you're all having an amazing night. My name is Molly Ginther and I wanted to come by to introduce myself. I recently was elected the student body president of Wayzata High School for this upcoming year, and I want to just say hi. Right now we have our junior vice president, Avi, and he's going to give a quick recap on the past couple weeks of school.
All right, so hi everyone, I'm Avi. Usually I'm not the ones making these little reports. It is usually our senior vice president, Daniel Argento, but unfortunately he wasn't able to be with us today, so whenever he's gone, I'll always be taking his spot. So just a little report of the end of the school year. On May 20th, we hosted prom at the Minneapolis Event Center. We had over 1,200 people who came, and everyone who attended had great things to say about it. The venue, the food, and most importantly, the DJ all clicked. So for the seniors, we closed off the senior school year with Senior Sunset. We had a large turnout of students. They enjoyed the evening by hanging out with friends, playing yard games, eating snacks, and happily watching the sunset. Seniors also participated in their grad walks, where they all went and visited their elementary school. They were able to see their old teachers, see their old building, and give some words of wisdom to the fifth graders. We had Junior Step Up event on June 2nd. And that was, donuts were handed out in the morning to celebrate juniors becoming seniors, after the seniors left, of course. And then also our spring sports were a big success. Big shout out to boys tennis. They got the state title after beating out Rochester and Mayo. And also for our track teams, both our track teams got first place in sections, and our girls track and field team got second place in state. So big congratulations to them. Students spent their last week of school studying and finishing the year strong in the classroom with their final tests and projects. And as we start summer, the Student Council is very excited to start planning for the upcoming school year. And we've already started thinking about next year's homecoming ideas. We are excited and determined to carry out Wayzata High School's mission of excellence for each and every student. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much. And there were some Senate elections in the meantime, so congratulations to each of you for your roles, and welcome tonight. And Avi, maybe we'll see you sometimes too, and we'll look forward to meeting Daniel. Board colleagues, any questions or comments? Heidi.
Where was prom held this year?
Minneapolis Event Center.
Very good.
We plan on hosting it there again for next year.
Sounds like it was successful.
Any other questions or comments? I don't think so. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda will be recognitions, and I will join Dr. Anderson at the podium.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our school board meeting tonight. My name is Chase Anderson, and I'm the superintendent for the school district. And it's always my honor to convene the recognitions agenda item for each monthly school board meeting. So it's my pleasure to begin that at this time. We have a number of recognitions this evening, both for students and staff, and we appreciate all those who have come out to be recognized and or to be the cheering squad for those that are being recognized. So thank you so much. To get us started tonight, we're going to recognize a number of students who are members of our Math Masters State Championships. And I would like to invite Stephanie Janish and Lori Finn forward. And congratulations. They're two of our coaches for the program, Stephanie at Plymouth Creek and Lori at Meadow Ridge. And we have students from a number of buildings here, and typically we have our students kind of gather around here. I don't really know exactly how many we have, but I think I'm going to invite that anyway, to have all of our students who are here tonight to be recognized for the Math Masters. The best you can, kind of cluster right around here, even behind me if you need some extra space. And I'm going to share just a little bit about the program, and then I'm going to turn it over to our two coaches this evening just to maybe share a little bit more in detail about the program, and they'll be speaking on behalf of those who were unable to be in attendance here with us tonight. So I'll share the following. The Math Masters Mathematics Competition Program challenges 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students to use critical thinking and problem-solving skills in mathematics. Students compete as individuals and on teams in 6 to 8 rounds of competition. Wayzata Public School students finished with high marks in several categories. Congratulations to these winners of the 2023 Math Masters competition. Well done. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and or Lori. I'm not sure who's going to arm wrestle to win the mic here first, and then I think what we're going to do is we're going to have our students assemble here in a moment, and we're going to get a group photo and have them, as they come by the microphone, to just say their name and which school they're in. And we'd like to acknowledge and recognize the broad base of participation and the representation from all of the schools that are here tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to our coaches.
Hi, I'm Lori Finn. I'm an Enrichment Specialist up at Meadow Ridge Elementary. At the elementary level, we open this up to all students within the building. At my school, all the coaching occurs during school hours, and the biggest thing we concentrate on is teamwork. The kids compete and do homework outside of class. I'm very, very proud of all the effort they put in. We fielded 4 teams of 4th graders and 4 teams of 5th graders this year, and I split the classes out so that they're even teams. And we just really concentrate on kids using teamwork skills, problem solving. And Stevie's going to talk a little bit too about, I don't know what she's going to talk about.
We didn't prepare this. I also don't like public speaking, but I do love a microphone, so you guys are welcome. My 5th graders worked really hard this year, just like all of the other students. We really focused not just on our individual talents, but what we could bring to each of the teams. Students have an opportunity to participate both as an individual and a team member. We have students in this group who have top marks individually and or as a part of a team, really emphasizing the work that we can accomplish when we're working together. As a little side note, these students also are being recognized by being invited to the Twins game on Saturday, and so many of them will be in attendance for that, which we're really looking forward to.
So just so you know, we are only representing elementary, but there are also middle school students that are here as well. Their coaches just weren't able to be here today. And we just want to, maybe can we start off, can fourth graders go up first? Any of our fourth graders? Come on up. And then just say your name, your school, and then your grade, okay?
Hi everybody, I'm Vansh Tilwani and I'm from Meadow Ridge, 4th grade, going on to 5th.
And then go that way towards go.
I'm Isaac Hubert from Northwoods, going into 5th grade.
I'm Anvi Kura from Northwoods, going on to 5th grade.
Can we get
I'm Ashrith and I'm from Northwoods and I'm going into 6th grade.
Hello, I'm Shruti Srinivasan. I'm from Plymouth Creek and I'm going into 6th grade.
I'm Evan Streetmater. I'm from Meadow Ridge and I'm going into 6th grade.
Hi, I'm Arnav Hiremath from Meadow Ridge and I'm going into 6th grade.
Hi, I'm Anshu Kumar, and I'm from Meadow Ridge, and I'm going into 6th grade.
Hi, I'm Max Wang. I'm coming from 5th grade and Meadow Ridge from, I'm from Meadow Ridge and I'm going into 6th grade.
I'm Kyla Son. I'm going into 6th grade. I'm from Plymouth Creek.
I'm Ethan King. I'm going into 5th grade. I'm in 6th grade. Also, I'm from Plymouth Creek.
I'm Mahika Duri. I'm from Meadow Ridge and I'm going to 6th grade.
Hi, my name is Alicia Bande and I'm from Plymouth Creek and I'm going to 6th.
I'm Brandon Xiao. I'm going to 6th grade and I'm from Plymouth Creek.
I'm Pablo Miller. I'm going into 6th grade and I'm from Plymouth Creek.
I'm Akash Roy and I'm going to 6th grade from Northwoods.
Hi, I'm Vinay Venkatesh. I'm going into 6th grade from Northwoods.
I'm Manish Kura, going into 7th grade from CMS.
Hi everyone, I'm Taran Jadiever. I'm going into 7th grade and I'm from CMS.
Hi, my name is Arpit Maji. I'm from CMS. I'm going to 7th grade.
Hi, my name's Kevin Liu. I'm going to 7th grade just like those kids.
My name is Shruti Chava and I'm going into 7th grade at Central Middle School.
My name is Coven Cunnan. I'm going to 7th grade and I'm in West Middle School.
That's pretty awesome. Notice none of them claim their former grade. None of them claim their former grade once they graduate, so. Smiling is allowed.
Okay, stay put a minute. Did all the parents get their pictures?
I also want a team picture before we go, just saying.
Yeah, we need advice.
No, I mean, just out there. You don't worry about that.
No, she just meant out there.
We don't need to be in there. It's all good.
Go in the mic.
One more clap.
Congratulations.
And coaches, did you say that you want them to collect outside for a picture too? Yes, please. Okay. All right, guys, you're good. Congratulations. Enjoy your summer. And we can't wait to see what you do next year.
Thank you, and again, congratulations. So I've been going to school since I was 5 years old, I won't tell you what grade I'm in this year, but I loved how they were all so proud about that advancing grade that they spoke about. So. I think we'll go ahead and move on to our next recognition, which is for the Wayzata Inclusive Education Awards. And I would like to invite Jenny Nias, our Director of Special Services, to come forward, which she has. I'm going to share just a little bit of brief introductory material about these awards, and then Jenny is going to share a script about the recipients this year. So this is something that we're all really excited about, and it's continued to garner momentum and grow, and we're really happy to be able to recognize some staff members tonight. In the 2021 school year, the Wayzata Special Education Advisory Committee established an award to recognize outstanding school staff who work to ensure students with disabilities have the opportunity for an inclusive education in the Wayzata Public Schools. 3 years later, we are continuing to acknowledge outstanding educators. This spring, Wayzata Public Schools families and employees were invited to nominate outstanding staff members who contribute to inclusive education in our school district. The WCEAC, which is the Parent Advisory Committee that I spoke about earlier, reviewed the nominees at the May Advisory Council meeting and selected the winners of this year's awards. This award is an acknowledgement and a celebration of staff who create, foster, and epitomize inclusive education and will be awarded tonight at the board meeting. This year, the WSEAC was reviewing birth through 5th grade and 6th grade through transition nominees, anticipating 2 nominees being selected. However, due to the compelling work of our staff and the impact of their work, there were 2 ties. Please join me in congratulating these impressive Wayzata Inclusive Education Award winners, soon to be introduced by Jenny Nias. Jenny, if you would, and congratulations today.
Thank you for that introduction. I would really like it if Miss Sarah Diaz from Meadow Ridge, Beth Struve, our district-wide physical therapist, and Alyssa Hanmeyer, one of our special education teachers from WHS, came up. I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about Beth Struve. She was nominated by her coworker, Stacy Boback. Being the only physical therapist for the entire district is an extremely challenging role, but despite this, Beth knows each of her students well and takes extra time as needed to connect with them and their parents. A perfect example of this is making sure that her students with physical needs have the ability to join in on fun recess and physical education activities. Beth has gone above and beyond to think about how to adapt basketball, chalk writing, coloring, bicycling, and sledding. She worked closely with a kindergartner at the beginning of the year who has never attended formal school to help him engage in a ball tossing activity during recess. She provided him with a switch-adapted ball thrower, which not only allowed him to engage in the outdoor activity despite him having minimal control of his upper extremities, it also allowed for amazing social interaction with his peers. Beth is amazing at connecting to kids of all ages, birth through 21, and is genuine in her interactions with all of them. She knows their strengths and interests and incorporates these into her therapeutic interventions. Beth has been working tirelessly to make our playgrounds more inclusive. She has pushed to create dialogue between the district and individual principals to provide input and suggestions on how to increase access to all portions of playgrounds so that students with physical needs can access more than 1 or 2 activities. She has been helping schools realize that although some playgrounds have been created with universal design in mind, they still don't actually allow for inclusivity since our students are smaller and have more complex needs.
It's because of this work and 1,000 other things that Beth does to support students every day that she is one of our inclusive educators this year. Thank you, Beth. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Sarah Diaz, a elementary school kindergarten teacher at Meadow Ridge Elementary School who recently received her master's in early childhood special education in order to improve her classroom and learn more about how to support students of a variety of needs at Meadow Ridge and just in general to make her classroom more inclusive. She had 2 nominations from 2 parents in our community. Miss Diaz, the first. Miss Diaz is our daughter's kindergarten teacher. The summer before school started, Miss Diaz took it upon herself to visit us in our home and understand our daughter's needs. It really touched our hearts and showed how much she cares for children and takes her job seriously and personally. Our daughter is lucky to have had Miss Diaz as her kindergarten teacher. The second nomination shared by a parent was that Sarah wants all of her students to be a part of her community, to reach their potential and to grow in her kindergarten class. She works tirelessly to advocate for her students, to get them the support they deserve, and to work with the multitude of district professionals to get her students OT, vision, speech, special ed services, PT services, support, and accommodations. It is this hard work that benefits students, and she gives it her all. I'd like you to come up and us to give you the opportunity to thank you for your great work, Sarah. We have a dynamic duo at Wayzata High School. The dynamic duo is Alyssa Hanmeyer and her co-teacher in the Wayzata High School Unified Theater Arts Program, Melissa O'Neill, who is attending a show in New York tonight. Good reason to not be here. Who were nominated by Tyler Shepard, the assistant principal at the high school. And he shared this. Alyssa and Melissa teamed together last spring to develop the Unified Music and Theater Arts Program, class, that premiered this fall. These 2 were extremely committed to making this the very best experience for all students involved. I had the opportunity to witness their instruction and interactions with students on a regular basis. The unified model was implemented perfectly. Disabled students were fully immersed with their non-disabled peers daily. Students were provided with a new opportunity to be fully immersed in music, theater, and performance. Alyssa and Melissa's ambition and positivity promoted unbelievable excitement and growth for the class, concluding with a full-scale production of The Lion King in the main auditorium at the high school. And it was an amazing production. If you were there, you know. It was moving and powerful, and I know everybody was in tears of joy and happiness. So with that, I'd like to give Alyssa her award for being nominated as an inclusive educator. So Melissa is her partner, who will also receive acknowledgement and has. And the one teacher who is not here, who had a predetermined trip to the Boundary Waters and is unavailable today, is our DHH teacher, Joe Ronacher. He is, Joe is my son's deaf, hard of hearing teacher and support specialist. We relocated to Minnesota 4 years ago when our son was in 6th grade, and I consider Joe's advocacy for him to be one of the greatest blessings of our move. Joe has done all of the work that his job entails, making sure his teachers know his needs and preferential seating, coordinating FM systems, taking care of his IEP, and staying in regular communication with me. Socially, he involves our son and his other students in games, fantasy sports leagues, help them build relationships. Academically, when assistance is needed, he assists with exam preparation, homework, and monitors his progress. But his work has meant the most when our son's life has been difficult. We've helped him join the new Wayzata High School system. He helped him return to school after distance learning. He helped him catch up from school when he was, I'm out of order in my pages, severely sick with the flu for many weeks. In all of these hard times, Joe would rearrange his schedule and go out of his way, many times driving from different schools, to make sure he was cared for. He made him feel he wasn't alone and that he was important. Our son wouldn't be in the place he is today without Joe, and I know this applies to all of Joe's students. I often joke that I wish other students, other kids, had a hearing impairment so they could have Joe as their advocate as well. He is a reminder that there is so much good in this world. So Joe is not here, but he is also one of our amazing educators in Wayzata Public Schools. So, congratulations to each of you on receiving this award. This recognition is a testament to your unwavering commitment and outstanding efforts in promoting inclusivity in education. By championing diversity and ensuring equal opportunities for all learners, you have made a significant and positive impact on countless lives. Your dedication to creating an inclusive learning environment is truly commendable. Keep up the excellent work and continue to inspire others with your remarkable achievements. We couldn't be more proud of you and your commitment to each and every learner. Thank you.
Congratulations again, and thanks so much for all you do for our special learners and all the work and care and concern that you bring forward to help ensure that they continue to progress in their learning and make great strides. So thank you so much. Our next recognition this evening, I'd like to invite some guests forward from the Wayzata Education Fund who are seated right in front of me. And I see Dawn and Sarah and Courtney that are here. And our Wayzata Education Fund works hard to raise funds to provide money toward grant requests that come in from our teachers across the district. And over the years, they've funded hundreds of thousands of dollars of projects and grants and opportunities within our school district. And they're here tonight to share a little bit about the most recent round of that. I think Sarah might be the key point person, but she may have the other two here to help along the way. I'm not quite sure. But at any rate, we appreciate all the work that they do. This is a fully volunteer endeavor. They don't have any staff. They put timeless hours in. They meet at least monthly. And we appreciate so much all of the work that they do and the support that they bring forward for the school district. So I'll turn it over to Sarah, if you would. Sarah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Griffin. Thanks for having me. I'm the chair of the Wayzata Education Fund. Raise your hand if you've heard of us before. It's okay if you haven't. Love seeing the hands, but guess what? I'm going to get to 100% by next year, okay? So the Wayzata Education Fund has actually been around for 20 years. We're about to celebrate our 20th year, and the most exciting piece of news I have for you is that we're becoming our very own 501c3. This is really important because it means that we can finally get to the next level and start raising more money for kids, teachers, staff, our classrooms, and our schools. And that's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to tell you about the just over $48,000 that we are awarding for next school year for 7 grants in our school district. I'm super excited to tell you about them. They're really cool, and they span K-12. First, self-regulation tools and strategies for K-5 students. This is thanks to Cheryl Butler and Cassie Van Caverden. Yes, okay. From Special Services. This is near and dear to my heart as a parent of a kindergartner and a 1.5-year-old. I see these strategies playing out in my son's classroom, and I'm really excited for my younger kid to experience this in 4 years when he starts kindergarten. Student-built cornhole sets, thanks to Reed Johnson from Wayzata Central Middle School. High school fitness center renovation, thanks to Ryan Johnson, a physical education teacher from Wayzata High School. Gender and race diverse mannequins for the health science pathway, thanks to Molly Jordan, health science teacher at Wayzata High School. Storytime Friends, thanks to Kate Mitchell, literacy intervention teacher at Meadow Ridge Elementary School. Kinesthetic furniture for specially designed classroom at Sunset Hill Elementary School, thanks to Abby Stanton. And structural design kits for architectural design at Wayzata High School, thanks to Carl Zachman. Let's give them all a round of applause. So just look out this fall for Highlight a Hero, a program that you may have heard that helps us reach every single family. It's an opportunity for you to contribute $25 and highlight your Wayzata public school hero, any staff member. And that $25 goes right back to the classroom and right to your staff and your students. So keep on the lookout, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here tonight, and thank you so much for your kindness and all of your hard work, because I know that you, all three, along with all of your colleagues on the board, work really diligently to help raise those funds. We greatly appreciate it. Our next recognition this evening is for our Employee of the Month, and I would like to invite Diane Kroll forward from Birchview Elementary School. I'd like to share the following on behalf of Diane. Again, nominee information that was submitted on her behalf. Birchview Elementary School is proud to nominate Diane Kroll, Behavior Support Paraprofessional, as Employee of the Month. Diane truly embodies what it means to be a Birchview Bobcat in every way, and our school is a better community because of educators like her. She shows her utmost care and love for our school every day, and she is known for being a go-to person around our building to support our students. When you visit Birchview, you will quickly recognize her. At the beginning of each day, she greets students, families, and staff as they enter the building. You can hear her genuine excitement as she sees everyone. It is a great way to start the day. She makes every person at our school feel important and like they matter. The little things that she does leave a huge impact on all of us, especially our students. Throughout the day, you will find her in the hallways, in the lunchroom, in the classrooms, or outside on the playground. She's everywhere with one goal in mind: to help our students be successful. At the end of the day, she's outside with our students, connecting and making sure everyone gets where they need to be safely. Her positive outlook and will-do attitude have made a huge impact on students at Birchview. She is a gift to our school. As we know, a school community is strong when positive relationships are present and we are all working collectively together as a team. Diane is a big part of our school's culture and climate and is constantly behind the scenes doing whatever it takes to help around the school. From helping us organize the system for lunch cards in the lunchroom to staff potlucks, which is known as a staple at Birchview, to helping in the office when something needs to get done, she is behind the scenes working with a smile. To help illustrate just how special Diane Kroll is, we are sharing comments from a student and one of Diane's colleagues. From the student: Mrs. Kroll is kind and funny. She makes me feel safe at school. I like being with her because she is the best. Thank you, Mrs. Kroll. And from a colleague, students are at the heart of everything she does. If she can find a way to make one student's day a little brighter, she's going to make it happen. Both our students and our staff are so fortunate to have her at Birchview. Birchview Elementary School is thrilled to recognize Diane Kroll as the district's June Employee of the Month. She's very deserving of this recognition because of her relentless work to support our students, staff, and overall school community. Congratulations, Diane.
Oh, I would like to thank Dr. Anderson and the members of the board for this recognition. I am truly honored and humbled to represent Birchview tonight. I'd like to thank Ashley Farrington for nominating me, for listening, trusting, and inspiring me. Your leadership and insight is so important to our community. Birchview's been a part of my life for the past 23 years, both as a parent and an employee. I am so thankful Dr. Cook took a chance and hired me. My roles have changed over the past 18 years, but the top priority has always been asking and doing what's best for kids. I carry that with me every day in my role as the behavior support para. I want kids to feel success in the classroom and with friends. I want them to feel connected and safe. I want them to be seen and heard. I want them to know that they matter. Finally, I want to thank our amazing Birchview community. Your dedication and commitment is unmatched. My life at Birchview has been an unexpected fun journey, and I am so proud and so blessed to work with and learn from you each day, making a difference for our kids. Thank you.
And I think our final recognition for this evening is to announce the names of 3 staff members who have announced their intent to retire from Wayzata Public Schools. We do this each month, and these are the individuals who have indicated their intent to retire. I haven't spotted any one of the 3 here, but if you're here after I read your name, feel free to come forward. Oftentimes they tune in from and watch on television for this section. Judy Mangum, paraprofessional at the high school for 6 years. Bruce Moe, custodian at the high school, 9 years. And Ron Snyder, custodian at the high school, 13 years. If you could join me in a round of applause for those 3, please. And I think that concludes our recognitions, but I think my pages got a little messed up like somebody else's did earlier, so I'm just checking my notes to be sure. And I think that's accurate, and I don't see anyone waving their hand saying you forgot me. So this concludes our recognition part of the meeting tonight. Thank you so much for being here for that part of the meeting, and hope you all have a wonderful evening. And I can say now, I hope you also have a wonderful summer. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, congratulations once again to our amazing employees and students, and thank you to our community and the Wayzata Ed Fund for your support of the work in the classroom. Tonight, for our last installment for this school year, and then we look forward again next school year, is our Student Spotlight presentation. And so I have Dana Miller, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, to introduce our friends from Birchview.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Anderson, and members of the board. It is my great privilege tonight to call forward Principal Ashley Farmington and some of his teachers, and I believe the president of his PTA, and they're going to share with us tonight some great work they've been doing this spring on their community garden project. So with that, Ashley, it's all yours.
Thank you, everybody. Madam Chair and members of the board, it's a privilege to be here today to share on behalf of our awesome school community. I wish all 450 kids plus all of our staff can be a part of this, because all of this work is attributed to their help. And so tonight, we chose to go with our community garden project, which is a project that started off small and turned real big, real fast. And we're going to explain to you a little bit about how that happened. And as a principal, I'm just so proud. Our kids were so excited to walk away from school and see something that they did. And that's something that our community continues to do and continues to just amaze me. So I'm proud to be the leader there. With me, I have my third grade teacher, one of our third grade teachers, Megan Trudell, and our PTA president, Miss Laura Nerdell, who were the main brains behind this whole project and just made it come to life real fast. So we're going to start with a little bit about our idea that turned into a garden, which you guys are encouraged to visit. If you want strawberries or spinach or lettuce, whatever you want, we have in our garden. So on April 18th, you can see that's how our garden looked right outside of our playground. And then right last Monday, June 6th, that photo was taken, and that's how it's looking today. So we're really super excited about that. And this project, again, we'll talk about how it started, but all of our students, most of our students took part in creating this, starting from, you should have seen them, with shovels and bringing the dirt and building the gardens and drills, which makes principals nervous, just saying. But that happened as well. Just so we can see how this connects to our work here in Wayzata. Every time we do anything that we do, we want to make sure it's connected back to our strategic roadmap, and particularly our health and well-being strategic direction. Connected, belonging are things that we talk about Birchview, and when kids all have an opportunity to be part of a project like that, that allows them to do that. Every kid at our school feels like they took a part in that, and they feel like that's theirs, and that's a big part and a connector for us here. At Birchview, we talk a lot about the Birchview experience, making sure that all of our students and staff feel part of our community. And you can see our Bobcat Pride part is a big focus of ours. We talk about compassion, curiosity, commitment, and community. And this project is a great example of all those things. And so today, we're going to share a little bit more about that. One thing I wanted to point out is the benefits of outdoor learning. This was pulled directly from the Minnesota Department of Education. As you know, we have our traditional classroom inside, but we want to bring our classroom outside. And the reason for that, it benefits our kids in many, many ways. One thing I would like to highlight is some studies show outdoor learning can increase feelings of well-being, sustain attention, and concentration, particularly for children who may have experienced trauma or other life stressors. Children who spend time interacting with nature develop a sense of responsibility and respect of nature, living things, and the world around them. So with that, you can see how this project is a big deal, and we're excited not only for the building of the garden, but what's going to come next is how the kids are going to continue to cultivate the garden in the years to come. So I'm going to pass it over to Megan, who's going to tell you how this all started.
Hi, I'm Megan. So this all started, our PTA gives us the opportunity to fill out grant requests every year. And I'd never filled one out, but we do some science curriculum units that I thought would be super fun if we had some sort of gardening project. The science kits from our mystery science curriculum have little planting projects that the kids just get so excited about. And I thought it would be really cool if we could take that and really expand on it throughout the school year. So I submitted a grant request for one raised garden bed and a pretty small budget. And then the PTA looked at it with Mr. Farrington, and they thought that this could grow beyond just a few units in science and just a third grade classroom and really become a Birchview community project. So my goals when I submitted the grant initially was to build on the Plant Adventures and Power of Flowers science units that were already built into our third grade curriculum. And kind of what Ashley was saying, outdoor learning just has so many benefits to our kids. Birchview is so lucky to have such a great nature space. We have our nature center and the garden is a really beautiful addition to the Birchview land. And then, of course, to promote community. And I was thinking kind of small just in my classroom, building community, but I was so lucky that the PTA took this on as a project because it's grown into something I could have never imagined. This project has really given kids who don't always have that opportunity to be outside even or have gardening experiences. I know we had one little girl say that when she lived in India, she had this big, beautiful garden, and she doesn't have that here, and so now we've given her a space to continue that love of the outdoors and growing plants. And then just seeing those things, it's one thing to plant little radish seeds in a Dixie cup in the classroom, but it's a whole different experience to be outside and growing. We have so many fruits and vegetables now, it's so cool. And each kid can point out like, oh, that's my seed that I planted. I'm like, maybe not, but okay. And then if you walk into Birchview, our 4 C's are at the heart of everything we do. And Laura Nordell will share some pictures and just how those C's have been displayed the past few months. But it's been a really special project, and the goals are exceeding all expectations. So.
All right, so I'm Laura Nordell. I'm the PTA president, and my neighbor, Nikki Halby, we like tag team this whole thing. And Sarah knows all about it. But she was like my motivation behind it. We would kind of like, okay, yes, we can make this happen in a month. We can do this for the kids. So the first step was just getting the seeds. And we went out to, and I'll say all the businesses that donated to us at the end, but we went out to a bunch of local businesses, kind of explained our idea and how we wanted to make this bigger than just one raised garden bed. We wanted all the kids to participate, K through 5th grade, from building the beds to planting the seeds to doing it all. We wanted it to be their garden that they did. And so a lot of companies donated to us. But the first thing we did, we had planned to do the seeds outside, but our wonderful recess paras funneled kids into the media center during recess to plant seeds inside. And our wonderful custodian helped put plastic mats on the ground and everything, so it was easy to clean up, but the kids loved it. They got to pick out what type of vegetable they wanted to grow in a little cup or flowers, and you can just see the smiles on their faces. It was just, they had a blast getting their hands dirty. So that was kind of the first step. And kids would ask questions, how long till I see this grow, and all sorts of things. So I'm just highlighting some of the 4 C's that I saw specifically, but really each one during each step of the process was part of it. So then we really did have the 4th and 5th graders build the garden beds. So Nikki's dad and a couple other dads came and helped different groups drill in the different garden beds. So we made 6 raised garden beds, thanks to Home Depot gave us a significant discount on lumber. And they did it, and they were so proud to move those garden beds around and build them, and it was just so cool seeing that, holding those drills, taking ownership of that. It was just really, really neat. Another thing is they went around collecting different organic matter to put in the bottom of the bed, so you can see some of the kids are like digging in the ground, finding worms, because that helps with gardens too. So it was just a whole process, and having questions about different bugs they saw. I loved it. So then after the garden beds were built, Aunt & Brothers donated all of our dirt and mulch to us. And so we had some of the younger grades and the older grades too. I think that's our 4th graders in the one picture hauling some of the mulch and dumping it, and they loved it. I mean, you wouldn't really think kids would love hauling dirt. I don't know, but one of my kids said that was their favorite part of the whole garden, was digging up the dirt and hauling it in buckets. And it really just fostered teamwork and compassion. Some of those are so heavy, and people will come alongside them and help them carry it and fill it up. And it was just so fun. So that was the next step, step 3. So then all those little seedlings that we had started inside, ironically, Nikki and I were like, are these actually going to grow? I don't know. We might have to run out to Home Depot and buy plants. Can say like, yes, this is it. But they did. They did. I think the only plant we didn't start from seed in our current garden is strawberry plants that were donated, or I bought a couple strawberry plants. Everything else actually grew from seed. It's amazing. So they transplanted it, they took ownership. Some of them may have found their watermelon that they put in a Dixie cup and planted it. And then they also made the garden labels too, so you can see their creativity in making those different garden labels on those popsicle sticks so they can see what comes up in the ground. So the next step is just maintaining the garden. And I mean, I was out there a lot. This is a passion of mine. But kids would just flock over there during recess and just ask questions, go look at it. And you can see some of them watering it. I know Megan had a big hand in making sure it was watered every day by creating different sign-up geniuses for classes to come out and water. But kids just loved doing it. And then you can see just them enjoying the garden. So from like smelling the dill, so the 3 kids bent over there smelling the dill. They saw a butterfly on one of the plants, tasting the kale and spinach and pea pods. And it's just has been so fun, and to hear the comments that the kids say, you know, like, I never thought it would be this fun. I mean, I've just heard so many amazing things that I say that I think this garden blessed me maybe more than all those kids, because it's been so incredible just seeing all the joy that these kids have had.
So the future of the garden, like I said earlier, there's a lot of connections to our mystery science curriculum that we adopted a few years ago. It's kind of, the units are moving around a little bit, but there's plant or flower or seeds or water and life, whatever it is, K through 3. So all grades K through 3, and of course 4, 5, 2, but have some correlation to their science unit, which is really exciting that they can utilize the garden during those units and beyond. I'm hoping to do some lesson creation surrounding the garden, with just including different children's literature, because there's so much out there, community building, our science, and then nutrition and health as well. All of those can connect to those lessons. And then science journals, I would also like to start next year, and I encourage other teachers to as well, but I think that would be a really great opportunity as a learning experience for our kids. And then just continue to build community at Birchview. Like Laura said, all different grade levels are a part of this project, and the watering, the weeding, the harvesting, all of it, and we'll have to replant every spring, so it's just an exciting thing to look forward to as a community. Birchview is really focused right now on restorative work, and I can see that being a big part of working in the garden as well. And then outside of school.
Yeah, so Birchview is hosting Wayzata Kids this summer. So we partnered with them on owning the garden this summer, because a lot of you are probably like, well, a lot of the production happens during the summer and school's not in session. Well, we have a plan for that. Even though this only came up a couple of months ago, we do have a plan. So Wayzata Kids are really excited about it. So they're going to have a table out when parents come and pick up their kids with different things that were picked that day. They can grab the food from that table. Any leftovers we are going to donate to some local food shelves. And then in other summers where we're not hosting Wayzata Kids, we're going to have families maybe adopt a garden for a week to water it, pick it, but it'll really be a community effort to keep it maintained. And we did strategically plant some things that will be there back in the fall, like pumpkins and sunflowers and kale, and some things that will still be there in the fall that the kids will get to pick when they come back.
I think everybody's feeling excited to visit our garden. It was truly a community effort, and there, like Laura said and Megan said, all these companies donated to help with this. We had Otten Brothers, Home Depot, Spikes, Lowe's, Go for Ace, Tonka Dale. They all donated, which was really helpful because, as you can see, the small project turned into a big one. And that's one thing about Birchview that I think make our school super special. It's a community school, and our community supports the things that we're doing, our families, and even our local businesses. We made the front page of the Sun Sailor. Some of you may have seen that, and so that was really exciting for our school community to see our community garden published in such a positive way. So with that, you can see our group of third graders. That's actually Megan's class out there. And at Birchview, we talk about You Matter, and this project really showed everybody how they did play a part in that, and being able, everybody matters at Birchview because they all played a part in that, and they matter every single day. And this is another example of that. So super proud to be up here to share this on behalf of our community. Again, I take very little credit other than asking some of the tough questions of, is anybody going to get injured? But I'm super proud of everybody, and they did an amazing job. So let's give it up for the whole Birchview community. I don't know if you have any questions or anything.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mr. Farrington and team. This is just really incredible, and I'm certain that my board colleagues have questions and comments. Milland.
First of all, thank you for that presentation. I think it's a great project. I have one question and a comment. How long before these kids are going to start selling this stuff at the farmer's market?
Hopefully soon.
The comment is about the PTA president talking about the fourth grader digging up dirt. Was that a pun? No. I hope he does the right thing as far as digging up dirt, not digging up the other dirt.
Funny.
Other questions? Heidi?
I just have a comment. I just want to say how amazing it is. Thank you for bringing your PTA president and your teacher and you coming, because there's like this magical place that exists, I think, when students and administration and teachers and community come together, and you really highlighted it. So thank you.
Anita?
Just a comment. Thank you so very much. And when I really think about just the diversity of thought in that hands-on experience, that the student get an opportunity to touch it, to feel it, and to see it grow. What an amazing opportunity for that. And your pictures are absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing.
I have like 1,000 more.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? I'm just going to echo Benita. It's just so cool and heartening to see how how it ignited body, mind, and spirit, not just for the kiddos who were doing it, but for the adults that were supporting them, right? And when we really talk about community, we talk about bringing our whole selves from each and every one of us together for a journey. And so thank you so very much for that. My question is, I'm wondering, can you bring the school together, if we think about restoration and kind of setting, can the school come together in the fall to kind of put the gardens to bed and to lay all of those seeds and stuff, so then the new school year can get excited about that too. So
No, we can.
All
Yes,
right.
we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of Birchview staff in the audience too, so I want to thank them for coming out tonight as well on the first day of summer.
For real with that, thank you to all of our staff who are here. Thank you for all of our staff for all that you do. Thank you to the Wayzata kids who will be busy tending those gardens. And I might just pretend to have a Wayzata kid so I can go get some kale or something like that on a pickup. So, all right, thank you so much. Congratulations, Birchview. The next item on our agenda will be the audience opportunity to address the board. And so I just want to make a reminder that if you are here this evening to address the school board and you have not already filled out a little sheet, there's some, I think, still back on the table in the back. And we look forward to having anyone that would like to chat with us this evening. Once you fill that out, you can give it to Amy Geis, who is switching the PowerPoint. So Amy Parnell, you can give to Amy, and we'll make sure to get you in our list. And as our friends are going to enjoy maybe a beautiful summer sunset, I will remind you that this section of the agenda provides for an opportunity for members of our school community to address the school board. Speakers who wish to provide input to the school board must, I talked about, complete the sign-up sheet, Please, and when you are invited to the podium, please identify the subject or agenda to which your comments pertain. We will give priority to students and families with students currently enrolled in the district. And the school board practice is not to engage in any discussion or debate with the speaker, but rather to allow the speaker time to express their thoughts. We ask that you keep all comments to 3 minutes and that they are respectful and do not disclose any personal information. So, with that, I think the first are for some students who are on their way up, and that's Robbie, Ruby, and Leah. We welcome you to the podium, and Margie, will you join them too? Okay, welcome.
Good evening. It's good to see you all again, though I wish it was not due to continued concern, but it is truly a privilege to be here and also encouraging to hear about all the awesome stuff that's going on in the district. I have 3 very special guests with me tonight. Will you guys introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, I'm Robbie Christensen. Yeah.
You can just say first names.
I'm Ruby.
And I'm Leah.
So Ruby, Robbie, and Leah were all members of the cast of the Wayzata East production of The Newsies this year, which was the full-length musical production that these kids put on, and it was extraordinary. Last month, I spoke and left with some specific questions on the table pertaining to the cost reductions around instrumental music programs in the district. I have still not had conversation about answers around those questions, but one that that was particularly important, which to me, probably the most important also to the students who I've spoken to, is which staff members specifically are being affected by these cuts, and are we willing to lose that talent? So the reason I wanted to highlight that what kind of the detriment around the loss of the talent, it expands beyond just instrumental music. And so specifically at Wayzata East, you guys can come, you're upstaging me. Come on, we learned about this. Just kidding. It's hard for actors to public speak, by the way. I don't know if anyone knows that. Miss Dennis, who is the orchestra teacher at Wayzata East Middle School, she's a talented concert musician. She's also an even more talented middle school teacher. And as a parent of 2 middle school students, there's a special place in heaven for middle school teachers. It really does take special talent. Aside from that, she has true passion for these students and for their musical education. For my son, Charlie, who just finished 8th grade, he learned how to play the violin over Zoom with Miss Dennis, able to capture all of those students' attention and actually teach them something, to the point where they had incredible concerts when they came back from distance learning. She's also a personal and educational lifeline to many of her students, as I got to see firsthand as the crew director during musical. And she is also the choral director of the musical, as well as the director of the 6th grade play. By directing cost containment cuts at instrumental music, you are not only choosing to take away from just string players in the orchestra, we are then choosing to take away from all extracurricular art opportunities across the district. These guys were joined by almost 100 students who worked tirelessly over the course of 4 months, every single day. It gets me choked up to put together this insane production that was incredibly inspiring. They built the set, they did all of the art, they drew up the costume design, they learned all the dance numbers, they sang all of the musical numbers, and there were tears and standing ovation after almost every scene. It was like, You talk about mind, body, what did you say? Mind, body, spirit. These are the types of things our children are capable of in the arts as long as we provide those resources. You guys did, I mean, it changed my life forever. I can't even look at you. I'm going to cry. Okay. So if we turn off the faucet at the elementary and middle school level, it is impossible for us to continue to deliver AAA students. We talk about arts, academics, and athletics. We talked about it last month. We have to provide these resources. We have to have the best talent in the state. We pride ourselves in living in Wayzata because of the arts and music, and we cannot afford to lose that. So I just implore you to reconsider these budget cuts. It is not just instrumental music. It is our artists. It is our singers, our dancers. It's our LGBTQ kids. It is our musicians, not just instrumental. It's our builders. It's our visual artists. We had kids spray painting the set like graffiti style, like better than anything I had seen living in New York City. It is so much talent, and they need a space, and they need a place to practice. And, you know, in closing, and do you guys want to say anything?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
In the musical, I was in the musical. I just made so many new friends that I probably would never have met if it wasn't for the musical. And that was just a really fun experience because I made so many 8th grade friends and so many 7th grade friends that I probably would never see except for the musical. So, yeah.
Pretty much same as Ruby. But it was the highlight of pretty much any day, and I feel like it's kind of the only thing I'm good at when it comes to school, but yeah.
Music has had a really positive impact on my life, and I feel like that isn't something that we should take away from anyone, and I think the new kids coming into the district deserve to have the same opportunities. And in a society where arts aren't the most prioritized, I think that there needs to be people, and I think there needs to be money going to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Gitch.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. My name is Mark Gitch. I lead the orchestra program at Wayzata High School. As an employee of the district since 2005, I am thankful to this board's and this administration's long track record of thoughtful financial stewardship. While I may not agree with every decision made over the past 18 years, my confidence in this district's big picture effectiveness has remained strong, and I've counted myself lucky to be a teacher in this community. Now, however, I have grave concerns about the process used and the criteria considered at our middle school, as our middle school and district administrators adopted cost containment measures over these past 2 years. Now, I accept that cost containment has been necessary, and that case has been made clear. However, the lack of communication, collaboration, and transparency about what might be reduced, why it might be reduced, and how it might be reduced has been concerning. My allotted time, however, does not allow for further thought on this topic. It's more important now to address the time-sensitive concern of the cliff's edge immediately in front of us, major reductions to instrumental music in our middle schools. In 2000, before most of us were around here, perhaps the last time this board was confronted with this magnitude of cost containment that it wrestles with now, the district made a decision to remove band and orchestra instruction from our elementary schools, to move away from this research-driven best practice, despite strong community support for these programs. When doing so, however, the board, the administration, and faculty made a consequential decision to uniquely support students who would now be starting their learning in 6th grade by finding common ground between the best elements of an elementary start and the needs of a middle school schedule. The upshot is that despite not having elementary start programs like Minnetonka, Edina, Robbinsdale, Stillwater, Mounds View, and other peer districts, most Wayzata students over time still catch up, resulting in meaningful experiences and often high levels of achievement. Our families have been attracted to this success. Enrollment in our high school orchestras has doubled in the past decade. Our high school band program has maintained robust enrollment. And our next year middle school instrumental enrollment is likely to set new records. And yet here we are with a 40% reduction to band staffing and a 56% reduction to orchestra staffing as a part of our conversation. This drastic approach, if left unchecked, will result in monumental change to our student experience. In her book, The Search of Deeper Learning, author Sarah Fine defines deep learning through 3 interconnected domains: identity, mastery, and creativity. She and her fellow researchers had gone out in hopes of finding many examples of deep learning across school curricula to share with professionals, but the only places they found it with any consistency was in the areas often considered periphery, in what we call encore classes in our middle school and in our co-curriculars. That is to say, deep learning happens most consistently in music, in robotics, in debate, in theater, in athletics. These things may be at the periphery of graduation standards, but they are at the center of our students' experience. Should the learning experience in music be changed so much that students can no longer feel seen, my colleagues are slated to carry 300 students each next year. And if they can no longer achieve mastery, despite every effort a teacher might make and a student might make, not only is their experience in music changed, their experiences of school and of life are irretrievably altered. As you review the budget numbers presented to you later this evening, I ask that you use whatever resources are available to you to put back in place the curricular structure that has allowed our Wayzata students in instrumental music to be seen and to achieve mastery, to develop their heart space and their relationship space, as well as their brain space. My colleagues and I look forward to partnering with you, with our administration, and with our community to implement the most efficient and effective ways of elevating our students' experiences in our schools now and in the future. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your work on this. And I thank you for all of the matters that come before you.
Mr. Skidmore.
First, I apologize. I don't know anyone here really, except for my wife. Part of that is, I'm not a big participant in community type events or board meetings or whatever. I have a master's degree in data science from St. Thomas. I also did my accounting degree there. I found my time in Minnesota. I grew up in the country in Missouri. Very pleasant. Everyone's well educated here. I bought a house in the Wayzata School District. I think you guys have done amazing things with the school district. It's very wealthy in resources, which is why I paid a little extra for the house so that way I could get here. I have 4 kids. Every time I look for jobs elsewhere, I compare the Wayzata School District to places like in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I said, well, you know what, I would need a little bit more from Walmart if I was going to try to build the gap of what you guys do. So first, thank you for that hard work. The one concern I did have was the musical budget cuts. Again, I wish I had a little bit more research that I could have provided, but I'll just give you a quick experience as far as what I've witnessed with my daughter. So we did the remote learning option for the 2 years. It would have killed my mom if she got COVID, and she was a full-time, she watched our kids full-time. And so I gave the option to the kids as far as if they wanted to be able to see their grandparents over the 2 years of COVID, or until the vaccine came out, or not. We still lost my father-in-law, unrelated, but my kids all chose to stay at home. Going back to school, it was very difficult for my oldest, Samantha. And so as parents, we were really concerned about how to get her back to the social environment after we basically took an introvert and then stuck her in our box for 2 years. And the way that we got her out was through the music, through your guys' music program. So she participated in, and I can't remember what the play name, but I did go watch it. She participated in that. She was in Harmony Bridge. She did 2 years of violin when she was in the elementary program. We had paid for that, and then so she went in, and she didn't like the angle of the violin, so she went with the clarinet, despite my ongoing encouragement to master the violin, because that's the instrument I always wanted to play. But through that, she gained new friends. I don't encourage, I was a show me state, I had gold medalists in the state of Missouri, but in sports, and I didn't encourage that with my kids. What I did encourage is I said, go music, go to a way that when you feel an emotion, you can express yourself, that you can release it. You'll learn how to compete. You'll learn how to do all this other stuff in other areas. And, if they want to do sports, they could do sports. But, funny enough, my daughter, when she did track, or there was where kids that normally don't play sports could all participate. And she joked with her mom, said, "Which one do you think I'll suck worse at?" And so, and I said, well, that's my daughter. She'll go in and have fun. What I like about music is it's not about competing against each other. It's about working as a community to make a product. The hardest thing when I was a director of pricing is actually trying to get the entire company to come together. And believe it or not, if I had music, I would have learned a lot easier that it actually is a lot more. Running a company, is more like running an orchestra, trying to get everyone to work together, go in the same direction, not overstep each other. That's why I like about music. That's why I encourage it. The fact that I have a master's in data science, obviously, I know music impacts the ability for some of those mathematical functions, the way the creativity. By the way, I really didn't like how your guys' math program was in order for you to teach my daughter to subtract, you guys had her add in. But then 3 weeks later, after I was kind of struggling with that, I was working on the programming problem at work, and I had to add to subtract. And so I said, you know what? They're already teaching my daughter in second, and this was when she was in second grade 4 or 5 years ago. They're already teaching her how to program, how to think like that. To come at it from a different angle. And then that's where I was like, oh, you know what? In third grade, she was learning how to do workflows. And so that's why I keep encouraging my kids to do all the music. I was a little disappointed to hear that there were some budget cuts. I wish there was a little bit more time that I could maybe dig into that and kind of see if there were some other alternatives. I wouldn't be opposed to helping fundraise I didn't need free lunches is a thing. And so, I saw the governor pass the bill. I mean, there was a lot of other things I would have preferred to diverted money elsewhere as opposed to cutting something out that I think is important to building a community and teaching people that we need to work together.
Thank you, Mr. Skidmore. Mr. Wolf.
Evening. Thanks for listening to us. I wasn't going to speak, so I didn't prepare anything, but I felt inspired by all the discussions. So my daughter goes to Wayzata East. She's part of the choir. She's part of the orchestra. She was in the musical. And so I just wanted to be another voice for musical education within the district. Up until, very recently, I felt I recognized your strong commitment to high-quality musical education, and I really appreciated that. And now I'm not feeling that strong commitment to high-quality musical education is there as much with these upcoming cuts. So I just wanted to voice my opposition to those cuts. If there's anything we can do, I recognize this is the 11th hour, and there's budgets to be dealt with sort of urgently, but if there's money to be found elsewhere, I would encourage us to try to find that. We talked a little bit earlier about the Wayzata district direction, mind and body and health and wellness. Musical education ties directly into health and wellness for our children, right? And so cutting that is sort of directly oppositional to your stated goals of health and wellness for our students. Not every student plays a sport. Not every student is an artist, visual artists, right? And so we have musical artists, and I feel like that's a very important piece of health and wellness. There's also the nuts and bolts of music education, right? I mean, we know that educating children how to develop the mastery of an instrument helps in every other aspect of their education, right? It helps them learn languages. It helps with their study habits. It helps with teamwork. So a cut to music education is a cut to all education, right? I mean, every other aspect of their education is going to be cut through cuts to their music education. So I just wanted to be heard on that. I wanted you guys to recognize that this is a really important decision. We should keep as much funding in music education as we can. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Our last speaker this evening is Representative Cleavorn.
Thank you, and it's great to be with you. And you know, over the last 2 decades, I've been a very strong partner of Wayzata Schools, advocating for all of our students, our staff, and our community as a whole. This evening, I'm here. First, I want to just say, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent Anderson, I am so thankful for the commitment that you have to our students. And in listening this evening, I just want to begin with sincere gratitude for the hardworking teachers, the staff, and the volunteers who are committed to our students and community. And I love the phrase that we heard this evening, curiosity and community. And I think right now our community is very curious about what is happening with the budget. And coming through the state lens, I know that this has been one of the best school funding years we have had in decades. And the money that the legislature has brought forward for our students is critical. And in listening to the needs tonight, I think it's important that we share with our families the details of that funding, because there really is a great deal of money coming into our district. My reason for being here this evening is to share with you the concerns of community members who were not comfortable coming here themselves. So as their representative, I am here this evening to let you know that I have received numerous, and I mean numerous, emails and letters regarding the following topics and cost containment measures. There are numerous concerns about the loss of great teachers and how will these teachers, if they leave, be replaced. There are concerns about the incremental creep is what I'm calling it, in class sizes. It's a student extra this year, a student extra the next year, a student extra the next year. So I don't know exactly how large those student numbers have increased over the last 5 to 10 years, but it is something that our parents are expressing concern about. And how these incremental class size increases are impacting the ability to teach reading, to teach math, and more importantly, how is it impacting the teachers as more and more is being asked of them. There has been numerous emails regarding media specialists and reading specialists, and the concerns that libraries are often the very safe spaces that children who don't fit in elsewhere need to go. And so they want to make sure that we have adequate staffing for our libraries and to make sure that students have access to that when they need that space to go to. And then this evening, of course, we've heard numerous concerns about the music instruction. In general, the families live in the district because of the excellent reputation of Wayzata Schools, but parents are concerned that this excellence is being disrupted by larger class sizes and budget efficiencies. In looking at the written budget presentation and the agenda packet, I'm just going to ask that you go in and clarify what assumptions were being used for some of the numbers in the budget. I know, and you know, that the categorical revenues and expenses can be very confusing. School funding is incredibly complex. The Minnesota legislature added significant investments for our students and to serve our teachers, our staff, and our districts. And I'm here as your partner, not as a critic, but as a partner. And I will continue to work tirelessly for the benefit of our students, our staff, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who has come to join us tonight. Is there anyone else before we move on? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Moving on in our agenda, we have, we move on to administrative reports and recommendations. And we have one item under the superintendent, and that's a reauthorization resolution. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Agenda item 7A1 this evening is for the MDE IOWA. It has nothing to do with the state of Iowa, but it's the an acronym, and we need to reauthorize that designation this evening through the attached resolution. And I'll just read a little bit of background for a reminder about what this is. The Minnesota Department of Education requires that school districts must annually designate an identified official with authority, and in parentheses it says Iowa, to comply with the MNIT Enterprise Identity and Access Management Standard, which states that all our user access rights to Minnesota state systems must be reviewed and recertified at least annually. The IOA will assign job duties and authorize external users access to MDE secure systems for their local education agency. The board recommends to authorize me as the superintendent, Chase Anderson, to act as the identified official with authority for Wayzata Public Schools, District 284. So the recommended action is to approve the attached resolution naming me, Chase Anderson, to act as the identified official with authority for Wayzata Public Schools.
All right, thank you, Dr. Anderson. Board colleagues, the recommended action is to approve the attached resolution naming Dr. Anderson to act as the identified official with authority, the superintendent from Iowa, as the Iowa for the Wayzata Public Schools. Is there a motion to that effect?
I would move that and also ask that we waive the reading of the entire resolution.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, it's a resolution, so it's a roll call vote.
Linda Cohen,
Yes.
Sheila Pryor,
Yes.
Heidi Cater,
Yes.
Juanita Lucky, yes. Cheryl Poseen,
Yes.
Milan Sahoni,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Next, under administrative reports and recommendations, we have a number of items under finance and operations. So I will invite Dee Dee Kering, our Executive Director of Finance and Operations, to the podium.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Anderson. I do have a number of reports for today. Our typical monthly report on financial analysis, for the period ending April 30th, 2023. The documents were included in your board packet and have been reviewed by the Finance Committee of the board. I won't spend a great deal of time on this because I know that month to month it doesn't change a whole lot, but just want to talk a little bit about how our revenues, our actuals are comparative to our budgeted forecast numbers for the 22-23 school year. Again, remember this is through April 30th, 2023. In general, on our revenue side, we are seeing that our revenues are keeping pace with where they were in the previous year. And a reminder, these are funds we have collected compared to our budget forecast, which for the finance team then indicates how we are doing on our forecasting as well. The one that looks is just a little interesting to look at, of course, is the federal aids. And federal aids over the last 3 years have fluctuated up and down because of the ESSER funds or CARES funds that we received during the pandemic. So that one is at 37%, prior year at just under 23%. And then the 2021 school during the height of the pandemic, it was at 50%. So fluctuations in that occur from year to year, and it depended on what was going on with the pandemic. Also on miscellaneous revenue, local revenue, I know I've explained this before, but we do see an increase in that figure compared to our actuals versus our budget of 93%, and that was due to an insurance recovery early on in the year. And then next, if we look at our food service budget, we can see that the food service budget is right in line with 2021, down a little bit from 21-22, and that was back when we had free meals. So revenue did increase from some federal fund and state funding. And then likely at the bottom on all of our revenue funds, they're really in line with overall budgeting at about 82% of collection of our expenses, our revenue for the budgeted year. Next, if we look at the expense side of it, our salaries and benefits are in line with where we were a year ago. Another category that we've talked about throughout the years are purchase services and how that number can fluctuate along with our supplies and materials, how that can vary from year to year based on our when we get our invoices as they relate to transportation, as well as our construction projects that can be paid more in the fall versus they might be in the early spring. So fluctuations there, but overall, again, our general fund expenditures are in line as far as our actual expenses to budget at around 67.3% in the general fund. And when we look at the other categories for food service, community service, and debt service, we're right in line with where we've been in previous years, with the food service fund being a little under on the expense side. But overall, about 70.6% of our expenses are in line and slightly down from the past year. So that's all I have for that report, Madam Chair.
Okay, board colleagues, just a reminder, there's no action for this item. It's just a monthly update that we receive, and this was all reviewed by the Finance Committee of the board. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the FY23 revised budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Anderson. As typical with school district budgets, we do look at our preliminary budget, which was passed last June in 22. We make assumptions based on what the best information we have on the number of students, what the percent increase we might expect in state aid, federal funding, as well as what our expenses are for the upcoming year. We look at past history, and we use that data to help with our projections, not only for revenue, but also for our expenses. At this time, we're asking for a second revision to our budget. We made one in February. We're asking for an increase in the budget. We expect we have, based on where we're at with our student ADMs this year, we kind of always under budget, make sure we're not budgeting for too much revenue ahead of time. And we have a few students, 50 more students than expected. That's about $343,000 in revenue that we would ask to increase that. And then on the expense side for fiscal year 22-23, we have spent countless hours. I'll point to Scott Lesage in the back, the finance director, and David Draskovich from our finance supervisor has spent a lot of time reviewing all of our salaries, all of our ADMs, or FTEs, our benefits, making sure that we're lock, stock in line with where we're at to date. So some of the increase that you will see there in the expenses are related to that. As well as we made some adjustments for what is called chargebacks. That's where you charge back to another category within our building, and then just bringing everything up to fiscal year to date activity through May and making assumption for the end of the year. Purpose of making an adjustment in our budget at this time is so we have a base for our budget for the next fiscal year. And it serves for a great purpose for that, to look at reasonableness, and then just being able to make those projections moving forward. So with that, we would ask that the board approve the revised fiscal year 23 budget adjustments as printed in your documents.
Thank you so much. Board colleagues, the recommended action is to approve the updated revised FY23 budget for the fiscal year ending on June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Dr. Sahoni?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Didi, I have a question about the
Yes.
fund balance. I don't remember what the fund balance was expected to be.
For this upcoming year?
No, for this budgeted, the one that we are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was expected on the, do I have the unassigned? The unassigned fund balance was supposed to be at 10.26 million, or at roughly 6.49%.
So it probably has gone down now, right, because of.
I'll tell you that in just a minute in the upcoming slide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
There just other questions or comments? Hearing none, the recommended action before you is to approve the updated revised budget for for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. It's a roll call vote.
Cheryl Posey,
Yes.
Milan Zahoni,
Yes.
Linda Cohen,
Yes.
Sheila Pryor,
Yes.
Heidi Cater,
Yes.
Bonita Lucky, yes. Sarah Johansson.
Yes. Okay. The next action item is, what do we call it? An FY24 preliminary budget presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Anderson. Tonight is just a presentation and not an action item for the board. I'll review at the end of this what the upcoming steps are for our budget. We did go through most of these slides with our Finance Committee of the board, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the steps that have gone into this process as well. So first of all, I'm going to spend a little time talking about the school district funds and what type of funds there are in a school district and how we have to record separately for those. I'll talk about the food service budget, the community service budget, debt service, and then finally I'll talk about the general fund, which is the largest portion of our budget, and then I'll summarize with an all funds for look at our all funds of our budget. So first of all, talking about our general fund budget, all of our school district budgets, the general fund is Fund 1, and it's the largest portion of our budget. You'll see in some upcoming slides, it's about $205 million. And it includes all of the normal operations that you would think of in a school district. So it's our educating our students, it's taking care of our buildings, it's administration, it includes our utilities, equipments, and it also includes our supplies. The largest portion of our budget is salaries and benefits, and I know that most of you know that. Second, Fund 2 is our food service, or we call it Wayzata Cafes. This is where we make and prepare meals for our students, and that includes breakfast and it includes lunch. Their budget, just like every other budget for where we're in service, we do provide the salaries and benefits for those, and food costs, supplies, and equipment, and revenue, of course, is included. And their revenue primarily in most years, but you'll see coming up that is not the case for this year. It usually comes from meals from students' payment, but we'll see how that looks, and I'll show you that in a minute. Community education, our community services includes early childhood family education, adults basic education, Wayzata Kids, our before and after school program, youth classes, community education classes. Their primary revenue is in the form of fees as well, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Construction, that is where we account for when a bond is sold, and those funds are put into an account to build the building that we're going to build. That is where we record all of those. And then the last one that I will talk about is debt service. And debt service is the payment of the bonds that I just talked about. Voter-approved bonds, we need to pay the principal and interest on that, and that is accounted through this particular account. The main thing I wanted to talk about is Food service and community education in particular, those have to be whole, meaning they cannot be negative, meaning revenue is less than expenses with a negative fund balance for more than 2 years. If that occurs, then the district needs to make them whole, okay? Now, it's not the other way around. We can't take funds from Fund 2 or Fund 4 or Fund 6 or Fund 7 and help offset the deficit that we might see in the general fund. So I just wanted to point that out because I get asked that question a lot. If we sell more meals, can't we move that money to the general fund? And the answer is no. So next, we'll look at the preliminary food service or Wayzata Cafe's budget. Pretty much looking in line. What is really unique that you'll see in the revenue category is the differences between the line items for meal sales, federal aid, and state aid. And you'll see in 21 and 22 that the federal aid was very high, and that's when we had some of the free meals that were coming in. And then in fiscal year 22, 23, then our meal sales went back up. That's because parents were paying for student meals, and our federal aid went down. The state aid has been pretty minimal at about $200,000. Next, when you get to this upcoming year, now meal sales are going down, federal aid is going down, but the state portion is coming up. And that's because the state now will be supplementing for our meals for our and breakfast and lunch for our students. So that overall increase is about $1.2 million. We anticipate, Michelle Sagadal predicts that we will serve 900 more breakfasts per day, 1,000 more lunches per day as well. So participations, she believes, will be similar to the 21-22 school year. Next, when we look at their expenditures, their salaries and benefits are negotiated already, so we knew what those were per the contract. They will be adding some additional hours to maintain the staffing levels that they need to produce the meals that they have going forward. All in all, I'm pleased to see the fund balance and making some improvement. I'll show you that in an upcoming slide as well. The only other cost that's fairly expensive for Wayzata Cafes is meal prices, or meals, excuse me, the cost of food. And the reason that is more participation causes more food to be purchased, as well as just the general cost of food and the delivery of that food has gone up. So those are a couple of tidbits related to the food costs. So when we look at the food service fund balances, meaning revenue less expense and the residual amount that's carried over from year to year, I'm pleased to show you that the Wayzata Cafes and their process and Michelle's budgeting process has actually improved their fund balance, which is great because, if I mentioned earlier, if their fund balance is not being maintained, then the district needs to take money out of the general fund. So you can see that since 2021, when it was negative, they've bounced back. They're at 1.3 million in 22, 1.5 million in this year, and next year projected to be at $1.7 million. So really pleased to see the work that Michelle and her team have done, and working very collaboratively with the finance department as well. So next, if we look at the community services budget, their budget has been developed using the new legislation funding that impacts their area. It includes negotiation process that they have worked out for their contracts. They are using assumptions on participation. Remember, I said earlier, their biggest portion is fees from students, and that would be Wayzata Cafes, as well as it would be for participation in classes. Jenny Ebert is the director, and she's used a conservative approach on budgeting based on also past history with COVID. So registration and demand for community ed programs as a whole remains high. The revenue is projected to grow, as we can see in the chart above. And then program fees are raised yearly to continue to cover all program costs. And then, as I mentioned, some of the state funding changes: increase in early childhood screening reimbursement, early childhood family education funding will increase as it is tied to the funding formula, and then increase in adults with disability funding as well. I'm also pleased to tell you that the Partners for Healthy Kids grant has awarded community education 7 grants totaling $294,000, which supports the healthy growth and social emotional development of kids in our school. All in all, the department budget has stabilized since the pandemic. Due to this, they are catching up on their delayed purchases of equipment, so they will be doing some of that. That includes computers and iPads and supplies, and then refilling positions that they previously either eliminated or put on hold. So again, pleased with Jenny Ebert's approach. She always takes a real good, conservative, thoughtful look at her budget, and again, has worked with the finance team as well. So the community services fund balances looks sort of similar to what it did for food service, where they had a negative fund balance during the COVID year, and has made some change and improvement to come back, and that's directly correlates to the strategic planning by Jenny Ebert and her community education staff. Next, we'll look at the debt service budget. Again, this is the budget that the district has and uses to pay off its bonds. Most people think of mortgages. You have your own home mortgage. You pay that in principal and interest payments, similar to that for us with our debt service payments. What's of interest to look at in the 21-22 school year is a large amount under that sale of bonds for $137 million, and then you'll see a correlating bond refunding payment of $136 million. The district refunded a bond like you would with your home mortgage, where you get a new mortgage with a better interest rate. Same thing, that's called refunding your bond. And by doing so, over time, we are saving taxpayer dollars by reducing our principal and interest payments. So this is more of an accounting function of what we have to do. It wasn't additional funds we received or additional funds that taxpayers had to pay, but just rather a refunding of the bonds for that particular year. For 22, 23, and 23, 24, those figures are more in line with what we typically see for revenue and expense, around that 15 to 16 million. It was a little lower on the revenue this year, and that's okay. You've heard me talk about debt excess, and what debt excess is we have to levy 105% of our bond payments every year, and so we receive a little extra money every year to make sure that we can pay our payments. And at some point in time, the state then goes in and does a calculation on that fund balance, and then takes that amount back, which goes back to our taxpayers as well. So we experienced that this year. It was about $500,000 for the debt service budget. So not to be worried about the negative 552 that you see and the change in fund balance. That's okay. That'll lower that overall debt service fund balance, which is what we need to do. So next, we're going to spend the rest of the time looking at the general fund. As you recall, I mentioned that's about a $205 million budget. It's a large budget. So I want to review several aspects of that. We've been working on the budget since about November of last year, and we've been doing several renditions of what that revenue might look like, what our enrollment might look like. I guess I magically pushed it on to the next one. But needless to say, boy, I'm not used to this keypad, sorry. There we go. I may need, there we go. So as you can see, the district, if you look at 19 and 20 school years, we were on a projection of enrollment growth and had been for many years, anywhere from 250 to 450 student growth. And when we got to fiscal year 21, or just after the pandemic, that changed dramatically for Wayzata Public Schools. So in fiscal year 21, and if, could you bring me that water? we were planning on not only about 250 new students coming. Those did not materialize, and we lost about 250 kids. And so that was a really challenging year for the district. And along with that, decisions that were needing to be made as it related to the pandemic and how we were supposed to approach COVID, we didn't really get clear guidance until about July. And by that time, staff had already been hired. So lower students, more staff, we had greater expenses. And the difference between what we had projected in revenue and the expenses was a $9 million gap. So as you know, and you've heard this before, the district has kind of been trying to get its way out of that, because if you're not able to cut expenses right away, it carries forward. Additionally, in '22, we lost a few more kids, about 70 students. And now in '23, we're starting to see numbers coming back. We're about where we were pre-pandemic, okay? And at this time, in past enrollment studies by Hazel Reinhardt, a demographer, we were well over 13,000. And you can see we're not even out to 27 getting to that figure. So pandemic had really had a big effect on our school district. So the enrollment projections take into consideration our birth rates in our community, the current census, the housing developments, and migration of students in and out of our district. And we do, believe it or not, have both, as we have parents that make either different choices or come to live here for a period of time and then move back either to their home country, or maybe they take a different job, whatever it might be. So variation. Also, kindergarten had been slated to be at 1,000 students. We're now roughly at around that 870 students in our projections. So when Hazel did our projection or a demographic study and provided that to the school board in December of '22, she used what's called a low kindergarten, high migration methodology for that. And these are the numbers that she had projected for our future years going forward. If anyone's interested in more of that, that was presented at a December work session, and I know all of you were there, but just wanted to point out that that is pretty fascinating to listen how she develops that and some of the challenges that are facing not only Wayzata schools, but our community as a whole. So enrollment is the key budget assumption for a school district. It starts the basis of how many teachers do we need, how do we fill our schools, as well as then projecting our enrollment going forward, or our revenue going forward. Also key to that is making sure that we understand what it is our revenue is going to be and what our expenses might be as well. So this chart, and the board has seen this before, I've been using it since December or January, projection of our enrollment on the top, and then what we estimated the funding formula to be, and you will see that I've changed the funding formula from 2% to 4%, because that is now the number that we know from the state legislature, excuse me. And as you'll recall, this was the first year ever that we projected a 2% and a 2% for the 2 years of the school, of this year and next year. And the next 2 years, excuse me. So we already had 2% in our budget when we were developing what we need to balance the budget and coming up with the cost containment. So for us, in a way, the 2% is really new money to the budget because we had already planned on 2. And then you can see the rates for federal and other, as well as our tax levy. Tax levy is based on our projections going forward on either growth in our community, because some of our tax levies are tied to the net tax capacity or our referendum market value, or inflation on, say, our operating referenda. And next, in projecting going forward on salaries, we do look at what our budget parameters are, either through the board, through negotiations, or what contracts have already been settled by the school board, which are quite a few of those, and those vary in percents. Those are included in our projections. And then likewise, we need to include what is our medical and dental and our benefit costs. We do know that medical is going up 7% this year. We're estimating that at around 5% in future years. Utilities around 6% in all of the years. And transportation, as you know, the current year that we're in, we received an increase of right around 13% net on our transportation costs. So 13% on a fairly large budget is a big increase, and when we're only receiving 2%. And then in the outgoing year, we're expecting that our transportation contract might come in with a little higher increase again due to increase in fuel costs, increase in shortage of drivers, as well as we expect that now that unemployment will be paid for summer workers as well. That will impact our transportation workers and our transportation drivers, and then we expect that cost will be passed over to us as well, okay? So we've had that at 10% and then all other at 2%. So all of this is part of what we look at. We also look at trends, as I said, and what we've seen in the past as well. So now if we take all of the information that I provided so far on the enrollment and also on the total percent increases, then we take all of that and run these figures going forward. You can see we put in 21, 22, so you can see a comparison. The revised budget is what you just reviewed right now, and then our preliminary budget going forward. One thing I want to talk to you about this particular slide versus a future one is this includes everything in the general fund. So it includes our regular operational budget for educating K-12 kids, but it also includes our long-term facility maintenance budget, which is about $17 million. It includes our tech levy budget, which is over $9 million, and other restricted accounts, which include things like staff development. It includes safe schools and some of those other categorical aids. So for me, a categorical aid is revenue comes in a certain category and a bucket for revenue, and we need to spend those funds in the same category. So, and I'll talk about the difference of the upcoming slide, but for right now, it includes all funds related to the general fund. So our local property taxes increased by $2.2 million, due mostly from prior year enrollment adjustments as COVID was winding down. Revenues were lower in prior years due to decreased enrollments, as I mentioned, due to COVID. There also was an inflationary factor on our operating levy. And then state aids increased just under $10 million due to changes in the state aid formula, increases in the students that I displayed earlier, increase in special education excess cost aid, transportation sparsity, and other individual number of line items that are kind of too long for this presentation. But we reviewed most of those at the last session. The board has received numerous emails from AMSD, MSBA, and all of that on the various funding that we have. We do use the state provided runs that they did for the amount of revenue that is generated from that. And again, as I mentioned, last week I presented on that, so if people have questions on those legislative items, that can be viewed there. Federal aids decreased by roughly $1 million due to the end of some of the CARES or COVID funding. And then our local revenue remains fairly constant from year to year. So increase in our revenue this year has to do with increase in students, increase on the interest, or the CPI on our operating referenda, as well as legislative changes. Next on our expenses and salaries and benefits were reviewed, as I mentioned, in great detail for the 22-23 school year, and then updated as well into the 23-24 budget, as that's the base of it. Purchase services, I mentioned, increased by 6%, which includes some of those LTFM expenses as well, but then transportation also. The supply budget, is down about $800,000 due primarily to a decrease in budgeting for capital carryover as part of cost containment. Other reasons include the review of other supply areas that were adjusted along with a decrease of our ESSER funding as well. And then other expenses are in line with pretty much where we were in the previous year. So overall, expenses are up roughly 1% due to the $5.6 million in cost containment measure that we have in place. So again, I just want to remind you that this slide shows all budgets within the general fund, including numerous restricted accounts such as LTFM, tech levy, and others mentioned earlier. In an upcoming slide, I'll show you the operating one where we look at more of the unreserved fund balance. So this one, I just wanted to kind of show you a little bit about, how our revenue looks compared to previous year. So on the right is fiscal year 23, and you can see that about 59% of our budget is made up of state aid and property tax of 35%. And then federal and other are about 3% each. When you look at the current year in fiscal year 24, you can see that the state portion is 40%, I need my glasses on, 60%, excuse me, and then the taxes decreased by about 34%, and that's just showing that slight shift. So we still have a decent amount coming out of taxes. So even though we receive state funding, it didn't shift that difference between what we get in state aid versus our taxes as well. And then when we look at our expense side, again, when you look at salaries and benefits, they make about 70% of our general fund budget, just down slightly from the previous year. And the reason for that is we do have some cost containment in there, and you've reviewed those since February. You've been reviewing the cost containment. Purchase services, about 16% of our budget, and supplies 3.9%, and then capital on 9%. So I kind of like to show this to just show on every dollar where do we spend our money. Well, 66.8 cents is spent on instruction and instructional support. If you couple that with pupil support, which are things such as nursing services and transportation and some of our assistant principals and counseling services, et cetera, you couple those two together, about 77.2 cents is spent directly to support and educate students in our schools. Then if you look at the top, 16.59 cents is spent on operations and fixed costs. So that's taking care of our buildings, our utilities, all of our costs related to long-term facility maintenance. And some of those fixed costs are some expenses related to insurance and things like that. 2.7 cents, or 2.7%, if you want to look at it that way, is spent on district and school administration. That dropped down just a little bit because we had cuts in administration. And then 3.47 cents on district support. That's for departments like finance, HR, communications, and those as well. So fairly lean on our admin costs and putting the money where we need to in the educational purposes. So next I'm going to spend a little time on fund balances, so bear with me here. There are 4 different types of fund balances being demonstrated in this chart. So on the very bottom, you can barely see it, a little green, hint of green, is the non-spendable. And non-spendable classification includes amounts that cannot be spent because they're either not in spendable form or legally contracted or required to maintain. That is like inventory. That's probably the majority of that is inventory. Then fund balances that should be reported as restricted, those are the light blue. They actually are light blue, but it's white on your screen. When constraints are placed on the use of resources that are either imposed by creditors, which we don't have, or imposed by law. These are things like LTFM, tech levy, our professional development, and safe schools are examples of those. So categorical aids that are required to be restricted. Next, the gold, the Wayzata gold color is the assigned fund balance. and that is part of covers a portion of fund balance that reflects the school district's intent to use resources that are not restricted or committed, but which has a purpose and an intent that is either set by the school board or by administration, and those are listed on that chart. And then finally, the unassigned fund balance, that blue bar portion of the bar, that is the classification of the general fund, which represents not classified in anywhere else. And that is the fund that everyone kind of uses as the measuring stick of how the health of your school district is. And so I'll show you a slide on that to begin with, or coming up next. But the fund balances as a whole, the total amount is listed at the top. Not to be considered the unassigned, but the total amount of fund balances. And again, remember, those really below the blue line are meant for specific purposes. Okay, next, this is our general fund unassigned fund balance. And the way the unassigned fund balance is determined is by the revenue and expenses that are neither designated or restricted or assigned for any other purposes. The unassigned fund balance, as I mentioned, is the best indicator of the school district's stability. As you know, the school board has a fund balance policy that has a 5 to 7% unassigned fund balance with the goal to stay above 7%. The unassigned fund balance is arrived by taking the unassigned fund balance and dividing it into the unassigned expenses. And whatever that percent is that. The purpose of that is to make sure that we can get through difficult times. And you can see that that did occur in 2019-20. We were at our highest percent of 11.4%. I've described to you in previous board meetings as to why that is, but it had to do with some increase in student count, some additional special education aid that we hadn't prepared in our budget, student activity accounts being moved over, and there's a number of other things. So what I want to point out on this, and I've shared with you before, is having that 11.4% unassigned fund balance was very instrumental in keeping the district going during our COVID times. So we're grateful we had that, but as you can see, we have spent that down. And to answer Melinda, your question, that figure has dropped from that, I think I said 6.79 to 6.51. So it has dropped down, but still just under that 7%. And we knew that that was going to be kind of the case. So we're projecting that that might be at 7.99 based on what we have in the budget for the next year. So now I'm going to get into what I talked about earlier, where we're going to look at our expenses and revenues related to the unassigned fund balance. So we've taken out long-term facility maintenance, we've taken out the tech levy, we've taken out restricted accounts such as operating capital is one of those, as well as staff development. We've taken those out of that picture so we can get a better idea of what is our unassigned fund balance going to be. Okay, it's not that those expenses and revenues go away, it's just part of this exercise is that. And so you can see we have the funding that we just talked about for fiscal year 23. So you approved that. We've got at the top, the enrollment going across, as we said in the earlier slide. We've got the increase in the funding formula. All those other revenue percents increase are in effect here as well. I'm not displaying everything. So all of the other assumptions as it relates to expenses are included in the figures that we have there. So just peeling it back and getting it to those items related to the unassigned figures. So in fiscal year 22-23, which you just approved, has that fund balance at 6.51%. Then when we go across, we will see total revenue at $182 million in 24. Then it goes up to 187 the next year, 192, and 198. All of those years include any money that is new from the legislature. All those things we reviewed at the legislative work session last week as well. And then on the expenses, all of the roll-up from the previous year, plus all of those assumptions we made, any increases in the number of staff due to any growth at any particular school, but also including anything related to transportation and all of those other costs. All of that is included. And then we have a line for those cost containment items. Now, this is slightly lower than what we initially looked at, and I described that to the Finance Committee, the board, and that is because some of the items that we had earmarked to occur this year, we're just not quite ready to be able to, or we weren't able to execute those, and so moved them to the subsequent year. So in fiscal year 24-25, that number of 3.269 is about $1 million more than previous. So we just moved it from 24 to 25. So the point of this exercise is to show you that by making those cost containment items, even with the new revenue, we'll be just a little above your goal of 7%, okay? And then the next year, we'll receive some additional funding as it relates to excess cost aid will be continued to be in there. 2% is the max we're going to get on the funding formula, which we had already considered, but some of those other aids that are included. Future years, 25 or 26 and 27, we know that the state is now going to provide funding based on the CPI or an inflation factor on our funding formula, but that has a floor and a ceiling. So right now it's at 2% with a ceiling of 3%. So to be conservative in what we're doing with our budgeting, we're not going to budget the 3%. In fact, I believe the state gave us for 26, it was 2.17%, and in 27, they told us it would be 2%. So those are the figures we're using on projecting our revenue. Next, when you look past those cost containment for year 1 and year 2 that I described, then you're going to see an added expense. And that is for unemployment cost. As I mentioned earlier, we now pay for our hourly non-certified staff. We will be paying unemployment for the months that they are not working during the summer. And so this is our estimate. It probably is a little bit on the high side, but we're trying to make sure that we cover all costs. We know that the state is providing about $137 million to districts across the state to apply to get reimbursement for the current year, which is 24. Current year, I'm already moving to next year. The year we're in right now, we will experience some unemployment costs as well, and that's for the month of June. And so we'll request to be reimbursed for that. So I don't have any new revenue in there or no expense in there. I'm just saying that it's netting out for the 24 school year. But going forward, we're estimating that 1.8 million costs each year. And I've told, as I've mentioned to you before, 2% on the funding formula for Wayzata schools is about 1.8 or $1.9 million. So even though we receive some funding for 24, 25 at 2%, we're really losing that through an unfunded mandate that goes forward. So as you recall, we are no longer having the opportunity to levy for that either through taxes. So hopefully we come back with some sort of a plan to help school districts with this, because it's not just Wayzata, it's all school districts will be facing this as well. So with all of this, you can see that by 2027, we'll be starting to creep down on our fund balance and getting back down to your lower threshold. Will things change before that? Sure. We'll come back, we'll look at it, we're monitoring all the time. But just giving you a picture of where we're at, that's always my goal, is to help keep you informed and be transparent of where this is going. So if we take out all that cost containment, that's what this exercise is showing you. If we don't do the cost containment, and I know they're painful, it's been painful for all of us working on it. It's not been fun. But we need to do something to right-size our expenses because they're growing at a greater percent than we've received for years, either in state funding or federal funding. When you're getting 2% and your expenses are exceeding that from anywhere from 3, 5, 7, and 15 or 13 on our transportation, you just can't keep continuing to do that. Along with our enrollment loss, that we've had and not seeing growth. Growth for the district has been very beneficial, and now that's tapered off. So my point in showing you this as a school board is we do need to make decisions about reducing our costs, okay? And then I took it one step further and said, well, what if we reduced it to 4 million? What would that look like? Yep, we'd be able to do okay for next year, but it's not sustainable going forward. We will be in the same position. I'll be back talking to you next spring about what cost containment items we need to do for 2025. So that's on top of what we have in there already. And I know that we don't want to get into a position of every year being the school district that cuts budgets. So I caution as a board that from the finance perspective, you will want to consider the cost containment amounts that we have in place right now. So to finalize all the budgets, now I'm taking everything I showed you for food service, for community ed, our debt service, including everything in the general fund, all of those other categorical aids. The only thing that isn't in here right now is the construction. I'll bring that back. It's a smaller portion of our budget, but I'll bring that back to you on our, when I ask the board to approve the budget coming up. So in summary, I want you to know that these are all the steps we've been working on in the last few months. But again, as a reminder, we've been working since November to start talking about what we knew was coming up as far as cost containment. We developed a cost containment committee. We have brought that forward to administration, our strategic leadership team, our leadership council. We've brought it to every school building. We've made a community presentation. So we have had things out there, and that was in mid to late February. So it has been for 4 months or so, we've been talking about cost containment, and I know you're all tired of it. I am too. So within that, we have approved tonight the fiscal year 23 revenue and expenses. We've incorporated all new funding that the legislature did provide. We did include the cost containment, as I displayed on that last slide, into fiscal year 24 and 25. And then we estimated the cost of those unfunded mandates and making the presentations to the board. So we've talked about some of the key dates. Last week, we did the legislative update to the school board at a work session. Today, we're going through all the fund budgets, and then on June 26th, at a special meeting, we will ask the board to approve the fiscal year 24 budget, which is required by law that we have a budget in place before the end of the year. So I just want, again, I want to appreciate say out loud, I want to appreciate the work of all the district administration, all of the individuals and folks you see over there have worked really hard, along with our superintendent, to prepare the budget and help the district decide on the cost containment measures. As I mentioned, it's been presented numerous times over and over. It's been sent out to our community as well. And one more time, the legislative actions and funding all have been included in that, and we appreciate the work of the legislature. We just are still reeling from years and years of having minimal increases. We are grateful for the money this year that we received from the legislature, but if you want more information on that, I encourage people to go back and watch that legislative session or give me a call. I'm happy to walk people through what I know. They're still learning about all of that legislative piece. So with that, I would be remiss if I wouldn't recognize my colleague, Scott Lesage and Dave Draskovich publicly, and our new member, Jack, on all the tireless hours that they spent working on the budget. All of my colleagues that sit around at the SLT, all of our principals, our directors, all have been working on the budget, looking at everything and coming up with ideas and ways to look at how we can and support making us have a balanced budget for 24 and for the long term as well. So with that, I'll stop, take a drink of water, and let you ask questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Dee Dee. Thank you to Scott in the back. Thank you to our finance department and our SLT, and everyone that's been a part of this process that continues. So, board colleagues, again, this is just a presentation. Many of it is things that we've discussed in various committees and things, but we can open it up for some discussion. Benita.
Thank you, Dee Dee, for the very thorough walkthrough, step by step. So the question that I have is clarity for me, as well as when I hear our community with so many concerns when it comes down to musical education, cost containment. And when we look at restricted, we look at all the different categories. If you had to say, Benita, here's where that fits in for cost containment, where is that?
Where what? I'm not sure I understand.
Cost containment for any musical education, anything that we have like that. Where would that fall within?
It fits into that last document that I shared that showed the unassigned. So it fits within that. That's where the cost containment has been within it. It's not a set aside special funding just for music education. Music education, art, Phi Ed, all of those courses are funded through the same manner. So help me if I didn't answer your question.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, yep. So decisions have to be made. I'm not the expert on this, but I know from things I've seen, music will not go away at the middle school. We're just delivering it in a little bit different way. And right now, the class sizes are fairly low, like 15 kids or 7 kids. So some of that is being right-sized. So that's one thing I know. But I'm not the music expert, but could provide more information on that if you need.
Thank you.
Ellen.
Yes, Didi, can you go to slide 17, please?
17.
17, 18, 19, thereabouts, yes.
All those fun ones.
So would it be fair to assume that the revenue part includes the 44% for the first year increase in special education costs?
It does.
Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. I'm wondering why, the reason why it was not stated there?
Well, I did mention all of those a number of times because on this particular slide, I didn't want it to be too busy to list every single thing. But as I was mentioning earlier, all of those items that we talked about at the legislative update last week, all of those are included. So there's some library aid, there's some safe school aid, there's some transportation sparsity. I mean, it's a fairly long list. Some of those are very small amounts, but there is a longer list that are included, and everything has been included in here.
Including funding from the READ Act?
Everything related to money that came as new money, yes, is included in that.
Thank you.
Yep, so you've seen those documents that have come from either MSBA or AMSD or the Department of Education. Everything that's on that list, we've included into the budget. Yep.
Linda.
First of all, thanks to everybody who's worked so very, very hard on this. And I think I've got a fairly decent grasp of the amount and why that needs to be what it is and so on. Where I feel a little discomfort is I don't believe I understand the process of how we got to the specifics on the cost containment, and I know I don't want to venture into management versus governance, but I know there was a committee. I don't know who was on that committee to decide. I don't know if it moves to the principals and then they make those decisions, and when they make those decisions, what's their rationale behind it, so I can feel comfortable about making that. So
I just thought somebody might ask me. I didn't put it up on the slides, but I can tell you that. We started in November, went to our leadership council, which is made up of 50 administrators across all of our school districts and all of our school buildings and directors. And we talked about what was happening, how much we estimated we need to cut, and we set them out at about 7 or 8 different tables, broke them up by different groups so that we didn't have, for instance, all of the middle school at one table. We broke them up. And we spent the entire leadership council, which was 2 hours, I think, and had everyone have a table with paper, pen, or Google Docs, writing up what it is that they threw out for ideas. And it was everyone. And they knew ahead of time that we were doing this exercise, so they were tasked to talk to their staff, talk with their other colleagues within their building to come up with ideas. So we took hundreds of ideas. And in the finance department, then we had to mesh those together. What is similar? So for instance, the walk to 2 miles was one, or increasing class size, or cutting administration. All of those ideas coming together. So we had to kind of funnel them down to kind of talk about those and what do we bring forward. And then we did form a committee because 50 people is a lot of people to try to narrow that down, okay? We did bring it to the superintendent's office and had him review it. We brought it to SLT, our strategic leadership team. But the cost committee was made up of myself, Dr. Flansburgh, Executive Director of HR, Stacy Voss, Elementary School Principal Karen Keffler, High School Principal Scott Gingler, Communications Director Amy Parnell, Finance Director Scott Lesage, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning Dana Miller, Elementary Schools Principal Jenny Berg, Middle School Principal Paul Paetzel, Technology Director Wade Phillips, and Finance Controller Jill Schwint. All of those individuals were on that committee. Once we came up with a list, they got reviewed several more times by different groups and finally narrowed it down to the lesser of many evils. So once that list was developed, then we started working with bringing that to school board, to the finance committee, the board, and then bringing it to a work session, as well as then going forward and going out to every single school. And then, as I mentioned, we had work sessions on it as well to bring that forward in our community. And Amy Parnell and her team then crafted informations, and Chase wrote articles, numerous articles on the whole process and where we're at. So as I said, we've started in November, and we've really been talking about where we're at and with the budget with a lot of frequency. So does that help?
That helps. Thank you.
You're welcome. By the way, we did have this cost containment presentation, I think, brought to the board in full, so as well. So a work session, I believe.
Other comments or questions? Cheryl. I don't have a specific question this evening. I need to digest this a little bit more before I come up with a specific question, but I just wanted to say thank you to the finance department and for going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. I know that many times a big organization like this needs to take a look at what we've been spending money on, and is that still effective? Is that still appropriate? And I know that you came up with some things like that. I think over the years, we have kind of done a lot of the low-hanging fruit. There wasn't a lot of that left, which is why we ended up with that cost containment that we're really feeling them now. So, but I wanted to say thank you to everybody for all their hard work and going through that, making sure that we are exactly where we are with salaries and benefits and going through that review and everything so that we know for sure this is really where we're at and that we really need to do some of these things. So,
right.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Okay, I too have a comment more than a question. And my comment reflects disappointment. And I think it's disappointment that we are all feeling. We we're really hopeful that, and as we had heard news about what was happening at the legislature and what was happening, and we see newspaper headlines and State of the Union addresses, et cetera, to talk about historic investments in education. And let's be clear, our state is very committed to education, and they're very committed to students. And there's a lot of really, really great things that have been done this year. And we are sitting at our kitchen table, and we are watching and saying, of all those things that are being done, there's not enough being done, or there's not enough here for us to do everything that we want to do for our students. And it's hard. And I know that each one of our administrators and each one of our board members and each one of those people on the determination, what a job to go through a list, because every list represents teachers at 77%, and every list represents classrooms of students and programs and other things. And so we are not voting on this budget tonight. We've heard a lot of important commentary, and we surely have seen over the months the passion and the commitment from our community. And then I guess I will just say, in addition to the disappointment, I want to have our collective commitment to each and every, and that may feel hard to hear, but it's still there. It's still there even in scarcity, and it's still there even when we need to make the cuts. And that moving forward, we might not be able to grow money, but we can grow passion, and we can grow commitment, and we can grow dedication. And we are an excellent district that does excellent things, and we've been able to be excellent with strong budgets and surpluses. And I think it is the expectation of the board and my colleagues to say that we're also going to be an excellent district, even in the face of scarcity. So an acknowledgement of disappointment, and I will even say from a very personal note, and an apology. None of us wanted to be in this spot. None of us want to be looking at the parents and the teachers and the students that we are. But what's going to be even more important is how we look at you on July 1st or 2nd when we approve that budget, and when we all show up that day and say, we have a commitment to each and every, and we have a commitment to excellence, and we're going to figure out how to make this work in the best way possible. So thank you all for your commitment, for your passion, and thank you all for joining us, not just in the easy days, but also in the hard days when we have a lot of really important work to do.
Thank you. I think I have one more.
Okay, I think you do too.
Okay, the next one, Madam Chair, members of board, Superintendent Anderson, is our school board candidate filing. As you know, the general election will be held on Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. At that election, four members, will be elected to the school board for terms of 4 years each. As set by Minnesota statute, the period for filing affidavits of candidacy for the school board election begins August 1st, 2023, and closes on August 2015 at 2023. Thank you.
Okay, board colleagues, the recommended action is to adopt the resolution establishing the dates for filing affidavits of candidates for the November 2023 election. Is there a motion to that effect?
I so move.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, Edie, do you know, I've followed these elections for the last 2 or 3 years. They're typically the last week of July and the first week of August when filing happens. This year, they have been postponed by a week.
I can't answer. I'm not an expert in elections, but I don't know. I mean, it's set by states. The state does that, so I don't know for sure, Melinda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would make a guess that the elections that have been in the past two that you might be referencing, the election day was the 2nd or the 3rd, and so my guess is that there's a window of time that the filing can happen in advance of that.
Sure.
Other questions? So I will just make a reminder in this process that a person needs $2 to file for their election as a school board candidate. You'll hear in a minute that we're moving out of the district administration office. You've heard that before. So I think the Creekside building, which is across the street from Plymouth Creek Elementary, will be the place where the person can go to pay their $2 and sign their form and get a nice folder from Amy that gives all of the information. The school board will also be having a candidate information session. We typically have that that after our July work session. I cannot recall what that exact date is right now, but it's somewhere around the 4th Thursday in July, after the school board work session. But watch, we'll publicize it in the Sun Sailor and all the things that we do to make sure that everyone is aware that we have that informational session. Fourth Monday, yes, a Monday, not a Tuesday. Sorry. Fourth Monday.
Madam Chair, also the Creekside building will be where the voting will take place as well.
Okay, so that will happen as well. Okay, other comments or questions? I think this says it's a resolution, so we're going to call for a roll call vote.
Sheila Pryor.
Yes.
Cheryl Poseen.
Yes.
Heidi Cater.
Yes.
Linda Cohen.
Yes.
Milan Sahoni.
Yes.
Bonita Lucky. Yes. Sarah Johansson.
Yes. Motion carries. We have some dates. Dee Dee, you had a long night tonight. Thank you so very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay. And now we will move to Stacy Voss, our Executive Director of Human Resources, for one agenda item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Anderson. The administration recommends the adoption of the attached resolution for unrequested leave of absence of the identified staff in accordance with the 21-23 master contract between the district and the Wayzata Education Association and pursuant to Minnesota statute section 122A.40 subdivision 10. This list has been updated from the May 8th, 2023 meeting due to 4 staff accepting full-time positions for the 23-24 staff year, removing them from the unrequested leave of absence status. I ask that you approve the resolution before you this evening.
All right. Board colleagues, the recommended action is to approve the resolution as it relates to approve the resolution to confirm placement on the unrequested leave of absence list. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Would the maker of the motion request that we waive the reading of the resolution? Yes, please. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? This is also a roll call vote.
Milan Sahoni.
Yes.
Linda Cohen.
Yes.
Sheila Pryor.
Yes.
Heidi Cater.
Yes.
Bonita Lucky. Yes. Cheryl Poseen.
Yes.
Sarah Johansson.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. All right, that concludes our administrative reports and recommendations from the agenda. I think we have a board report this evening from Milan Sahoni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, I would like to report on a cricket match during the My Time at Central Middle School. Kiran Zaman, who is a CMS teacher and equity lead, called me a few weeks ago asking me if I could help, if I had interest in doing something for the My Time cricket match during the AAPI month, which was in May. And I quickly said yes, because cricket is one of my biggest passions. So the match was played on May 23rd and 25th from 9:10 to 10:10 a.m. during the My Time session schedule. Kiran asked for a lot of help, but only thing that these kids needed was the pair of stumps. They had everything all planned, the teams, they knew who the coaches were, they even had their own umpires. So I didn't do much other than take the stumps and watch these two matches on 2 days. My fellow board member Heidi Kader was there on one of those days, on May 23rd. It was played on the football field on the AstroTurf. That evening on May 23rd, Wayzata's community ed had a Try It Free cricket session for kids. 63 kids showed up for that session that evening. And here's a message from Ms. Zaman. Congratulations, it's very exciting. What an incredible amount of work you and the coaches and everyone have done to make it happen. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome. That sounds fantastic. Thank you for that report. I will add, are there any other board reports?
Madam Chair, can I just mention, we had graduation this past month, and it was quite the evening and quite the celebration, and I just want to take a minute to congratulate every family and every graduate for all of the accomplishments that brought them to that moment.
Thank you. Any other board reports? I just have one thing that I alluded to before. Just a reminder that our transition program will be moving into our district administration building. We have a history of Wayzata of telling the adults to figure something out when we need space for children. And we need space for our 18 to 21-year-olds, and so they will be moving into our DAB. In the meantime, we'll have some people at the Creekside building, and we're working on some other things. But that's what that's going to mean. Most important for our listening public is you might go there in a little while, and no one will be there. And so that Creekside building is across the street from Plymouth Creek. That also could mean that our work sessions at some point will have a different location. We know for sure. We don't know exactly when, how long we'll be able to use our room. Please watch the postings. If you are looking to find our board meetings, we want to make sure that everyone can access them. They'll also be posted online as they typically are. So just be aware of that. Finally, I would like to say a debt of gratitude to our parents, to our grandparents, to our nannies, to our coaches, to our neighbors, to our bus drivers, and to all of our staff and employees that landed a pretty incredible year. It was not without lots of ups and downs, but I wish you all a summer filled with your favorite things that is just as incredible as you are. We are grateful for every one of our Wayzata community members. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning this July 12th regular meeting at 9:40 p.m., please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Was that Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for June 12th, 2023 is adjourned.